Welcome to the Andy Beshear Podcast. You can download this podcast on all major platforms and watch our YouTube channel at Andy Beshear Podcast. We're in the middle of Season 2 called Prime for 2026. We're introducing you to primary candidates from around the country for Senate, for governor, for Congress, and for other offices. Today, we have a great episode. Dr. Amy Acton, who is the Democratic nominee for governor in Ohio, is going to join us. Recent polls have her up, and she is seeing support across the board. Amy led her state through COVID, working with a Republican governor, but simply trying to do what's right. I think she's viewed as objective, not right or left, but trying to move her state forward. You're really going to enjoy this interview. Then we have our conversation with the Johns, and in my Kentucky accent, I talk about the importance of Black History Month and the fact that this president should recognize its importance too. So buckle up and enjoy this episode of the Andy Beshear Podcast. Our guest on the Andy Beshear Podcast for this week's edition of Prime for 2026 is Dr. Amy Acton. Amy is a lifelong public servant who has spent her career fighting for the people of Ohio. Amy grew up in Youngstown, where she faced a tough childhood and she overcame abuse, hunger, and periods of homelessness. She put herself through college and medical school in Ohio and did a residency in Columbus at Children's Hospital. Dr. Acton continued her work as a doctor and public health expert at Ohio State and the Columbus Foundation. As the former director of the Ohio Department of Public Health under Governor DeWine, Amy and I actually worked together on the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. She also took on the opioid crisis, worked to hold prescription drug companies accountable, and her work, I think, has saved countless lives and helped Ohio's economy and schools get through the pandemic and open sooner than many other states. She's running for governor because she refuses to look the other way as Ohio's working families struggle to get by while politicians in Columbus cater to special interests, corporations, and billionaires. She's fighting for a state where Ohioans can thrive. Amy, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me, Governor.
Well, I'm really glad you're here. I want to start with your background. You've had to go through so much. How do you think that prepares you, especially when you see some other families struggling too? You see some other people going through trauma.
Well, that's true. So many people in my state right now are struggling. They're doing everything right, but there's no breathing room. And, that's something I understand personally. I did grow up in Youngstown, Ohio, which is, Bruce Springsteen's songs that we know, right? And it was a pretty rough childhood. I was a frequent flyer in children's services, a lot of abuse and neglect. And my brother and I actually lived in a tent in the middle of winter. Finally, at the age of 12, I was removed from that situation. We literally moved 1 mile away from where I had been, but I stayed in one school for the next 6 years, and then I got in med school right out of high school, an accelerated BSMD program, and so my life got better, but I was haunted by the kids I left behind at all my other schools who were just as nice, just as smart, but you could watch our lives go different ways. I didn't have words for it yet, but I was learning that your zip code can predict on average how long you will live, what kind of life you will have. And a lot of the theme for my running for governor comes from my childhood, also being a doctor. I've been trying to get behind the root causes of things my whole life. I'm almost 60. I'm turning 60 this month.
Happy birthday.
Oh, thank you. And my whole life has been trying to solve these wicked hard problems. When you're a kid going through things like that, you notice when people look the other way.
Right.
Because it's hard to see. It's not that they don't care. It's just they don't know what to do about it.
So you want to be the governor that never looks the other way.
Absolutely. It's a promise I'm making to Ohioans. You will never, ever be unseen by me, because the people I remember more are the people who don't look the other way. I remember a couple who would pull us up on their front porch walking by on the way to school, my brother and I, feed us breakfast because they knew we were hungry. And, you know, I keep thinking as governor, and I've been hearing this from superintendents everywhere all around my state, I say if we could stop the bad stuff that vouchers and other things are doing in my state, what's the one thing you want? And to a person, every superintendent said free breakfast and lunch for kids. And these are the things that Ohioans are longing for public servants to do again, to solve problems instead of making problems, which is what we're seeing a lot of.
And I think you approach this race pragmatically, not right, not left, not really even red or blue or Democrat, Republican. It's that idea that that kid who doesn't have enough to eat can't concentrate, can't focus. And shouldn't we all be able to say that at least every child in America should have enough to eat?
Absolutely. I can't. And you know what? I've been traveling my state for almost 2 years now, listening deeply. And that is the Ohioans I know. You know, my whole career has been about having to work with both sides of the aisle. I've worked for 4 different governors over time, both sides of the aisle. Obviously, you met me working with Governor Mike DeWine, a Republican governor.
Right.
You know, it's not about party anymore. It is about extreme wealth, power, and ideology against everyone else. And everywhere we've gone, we've seen these record crowds show up, and it doesn't know party. We see tons of independents and lifelong Republicans who are exhausted by the hate and the chaos and the vitriol, and they want to see us solving problems. And I was fortunate during a really hard time to bond with Ohioans.
Yes.
And so I think they trust me, and it's as a doctor, not a politician. And I keep sharing this is my very first race since high school.
You chose a big one.
Yeah, and I chose a big one. But it comes, I think I have a voice, and I keep telling people this is a time that's asking a lot of us again. It's going to take, you know, a lot of courage. When I'm out in Ohio, I'm like, I need your help. It's going to take some courage. Courage comes from the root word heart. It means opening your heart up when you see things you can't unsee, when you see suffering. You've always been a governor that's been willing to put those hard cards on the table and ask more of people and go alongside of people. And I've admired your leadership.
Thank
Many
you.
of us in Ohio do. And I just think we're living in a time where, you know, while everyone's trying to pit us against one another, I think I'm the kind of person, I know you've been the kind of governor who pulls people around those tables. You know, people keep trying to pit us all against one another, but 95% of what I hear when I'm out talking to Ohioans is not controversial at all.
Amen. Not partisan at all.
It is not partisan, and it is the cost of everyday living. You know, it's housing and childcare, and our property taxes are going up because our kind of broken state house where I live keeps like giving breaks to the like super wealthy, but everyone else is struggling to get by. We're dealing with things where there's no child care, you know, in parts of my state, and it costs $25,000 a year to have 2 kids in child care. And, you know, our property taxes are going up because we're not funding the local funds in Ohio. And all these things are compiling to where there's no more breathing room. And I'm running because I can't look the other way, while bad actors and special interests in my state house have been taking the state of Ohio backwards on every measure. Everywhere I go, people in Ohio are ready for change.
On the Andy Beshear Podcast, we're talking with Amy Acton, who is running for governor of Ohio. We just talked a little bit about how some of the policies in Ohio right now are only helping the billionaires and not the working folk. And so that brings us to a pretty big difference between you and your opponent, who is one of those billionaires.
Yes.
Who just seems really out of touch in so many different ways.
Yes, I'm running most likely against billionaire Vivek Ramaswamy. And he famously, I think, and one of the reasons I don't think he stayed with DOGE is he said that people are struggling because they're lazy and they're mediocre and they're just not working hard enough.
That's what J.D. Vance said about the people of Kentucky
Yes.
in the book that made him famous.
Yeah.
And pretended he was from here and then blamed us. It's that condescension that I think would lead to such bad governance.
Yeah. I think what Ohioans are picking up on in this race is that he just doesn't understand what they're going through. And, you know, he says a lot of interesting policy ideas. Like one of his was, the way to solve the child care crisis was to make the school day go from 3 to 4 p.m. And it didn't take long for that to go everywhere on Midas Touch, on everywhere around the country. It was so bad what he was saying that his team actually took his post down. Of course, my team had a copy of it, and they actually left it up on Threads by accident. Their covering for it was to say that my team had done AI, that we had done this, but all we did was merely post his own words. And that's been a lot of our campaign, has literally been just pointing out his own words.
So at a time when the cost of living is too high, everything that goes into what people are calling affordability, I worry that as Democrats we want to coin something in a political sciencey way, as opposed to talk about people's struggles.
Yeah, just the cost of life.
Of everything.
Of everything.
And it's almost when you say affordability, does it include not being able to buy that home?
Yeah.
When your parents could at that age.
Yeah.
And does it really evoke how you must feel if you feel like you're behind and don't know how to catch up? But the idea that we have a potential candidate on the other side that's a billionaire that questioned the need for Medicaid and Medicare.
Actually, the whole project, we got to actually keep our eye on the ball, was dismantling the existence of that nanny state in all of its forms, the entitlement state, the regulatory state, and the foreign nanny state. And, we've gotten into the thick of a lot here very
this is great.
quickly.
I'm glad to get into it. Were Medicare and Medicaid mistakes?
I believe they were, with the benefit of retrospect, particularly Medicaid, particularly the welfare state, without work attachments required attached to it.
Yes. He was recently on Fox saying that it was perceived costs of living.
Oh, that's right. He did a affordability as a hoax too.
To tackle those rising or perceived to be rising costs.
Yeah, and then right before he launched his bid for governor, he was on Ezra Klein's podcast saying that Medicaid and Medicare are mistakes, big mistakes, and he went on from that. It got even worse what he said after it. And right now in my state, and it's probably similar in your state, 40% of children are born on Medicaid.
Yes, us too.
Our rural hospitals are collapsing right now. We have 11 right on the brink, and an urban hospital as well in Cleveland. Mm-hmm. Medicare is like 2.5 million Ohioans. And what people don't understand is most people getting Medicaid are working.
Yes.
It's for disabilities. Mm-hmm. It does our nursing homes. Mm-hmm. It does our veterans care.
60% of our long-term care costs in Kentucky are Medicaid.
Exactly. So this is all of our parents.
Yep, our parents
at some point,
and our children.
And I can't say enough. We're on the brink right now, and people are doing everything right. I'm going to give you a story of someone doing everything right that might sound like something you see. I met a mom recently in Claremont, which is little Collier County of Cincinnati. So
I know Claremont.
Right, and it's very close. We share so much as states. And she had premature twins. $300,000 in medical debt. This is one of the things I'm absolutely want to do. I want to go after medical debt. Governors can do something about this. This is top of my mind.
And a governor that's a doctor.
Right. And it's a two-parent, working family. And now they're trying to pay off this medical debt. The housing costs too much, as you say, when you're young. The schools now, which are being underfunded greatly, public schools are under attack in my state. Mm-hmm. My opponent just took $10 million from Yas into his PAC to end public schools as we know it. Public schools saved my life as a kid. I'm married to a 43-year public school, elementary school teacher and a coach, all right? Our schools were given much more. You were able to get out ahead of vouchers here, which was brilliant. And
and we beat that same individual when he tried to fund a campaign to get them.
Exactly. And in the rural counties and small towns that went overwhelmingly Trump in that election, they were absolutely overwhelmingly against vouchers because public schools are all we have.
Yes, are the only school.
Right. It's where healthcare is happening. It's where workforce is happening.
And they love their public school.
And you love your public school. It's the center of the way of life. And right now these vouchers are given in some of these counties that I've been visiting, $8,500 to private schools and $3,500. Toledo's going to 4 days a week. We can't bus the public school kids, but we're busing the private. It is a real crisis.
And the same rules don't apply.
The same rules don't apply. Yeah. And these ideologies are being put through these state houses. This is why I commend you for being able to get your state out ahead of it. Well, this mom, now with the medical debt and high property taxes, and our energy bills went up by, like mine went up by $140 in Ohio right now. We're really struggling with energy, electric bills. But then her school stopped kindergarten because they can't afford to do it anymore. So now she's got to pay, child care is like $25,000 a year for 2 kids. All of this is adding up to people who are doing everything right. They are not lazy. They are not mediocre, like my opponent says. They're not. He said, you just have to get a better paying job and you'll be able to handle it. This is the kind of thing that's happening in our states. And this mom's doing everything right. And she's not struggling from doing stuff wrong.
And if the American dream is working hard and playing by the rules to get ahead, how can she be suffering from that $350,000 of debt? Housing, no kindergarten.
Right. And this is what Ohioans are telling me every day. And this is all of us. We got to understand this is all of us.
You're listening to the Andy Beshear Podcast. We've got Amy Acton, our candidate for governor in Ohio. We've just talked a lot about healthcare. Let's talk a little bit about the current federal administration.
Yeah.
Because governors are, I believe, sometimes the first, but often the last line of defense. And certainly states that have blue governors or attorneys general are standing up to this president.
That's right.
Especially when he tries to cut funding for addiction.
Right.
When he tries to cut funding for meals in schools, when he tries to cut funding for all these different areas. When you've got a Democratic governor, we sue, we win, we get those funds back.
That's right.
But when you don't, and that lawsuit's not filed, the people of that state suffer.
And I will tell you, working alongside a Republican governor, Governor Mike DeWine, for instance, he tried to move things on child care. He's trying to do stuff on addiction. We have bipartisan business groups trying to do it. And in my corrupt state house, they block all of that. And that's because they are now taking so much special interest money with these strange ideologies that, it would be getting a Democratic governor in is the beginning of turning my state around. We used to be one of the healthiest states, the best educated, incredible economic diversity. We are going backwards on every single measure in my state because we have a corrupt state houses. So governors need to be pushing back federally, and they need to be pushing back to build and start a whole generation in their legislature. In Ohio, we are at a tipping point. We're so excited because, we're out ahead in this race, just neck and neck race, but we're winning right now in independents by 21 points. Getting tons of Republicans crossing over because they're realizing life is not getting better. Where I grew up in places like Youngstown, Ohio, we went Obama twice, but then we went Trump. And people want change because life's not getting better. But what I've realized is not only are we not pushing back on what's happening in our federally, but we don't have people in our state who are fighting any longer because we're so gerrymandered that they can't, that we're not actually solving the problems of everyday life for people. I think we're living in a time where we can't look the other way anymore.
So we're seeing in Kentucky Donald Trump's tariff policy hitting our economy in every possible way. Single worst economic policy of my lifetime. How is it hitting Ohio?
Same thing, talking to a lot of businesses, rural Ohio, tariffs, obviously, our farmers, couldn't sell large majorities of soy, and so this is a really, really big issue in our rural communities. And again, you couple that with these bad Medicaid and Medicare policies, those are hurting our rural hospitals most, and hospitals are a big economic driver in many parts of rural Ohio.
Highest payroll in every one of those communities.
Yeah, and then schools. So when I am talking, I spend a lot of time going places. Quite frankly, Dems hadn't gone in a long time in my state, listening deeply. And to a person, things like healthcare, public schools, a diversity of economic development in our small towns, being able to package themselves right, we have data centers coming in our state, and energy costs are driving up, and sometimes we're seeing in small town that there are these non-disclosure agreements, so people can't even understand what's going on. All of this bad policy that unfortunately the person I'm running against wants to double down on. The person I'm running against actually moved his business to Texas right before running for governor. Like, you can't make this
From
up.
Ohio to Texas.
Yeah.
And he's running to be governor of which one?
Ohio. So I can't say enough. What people are longing for are public servants who solve the problems of our everyday life.
Yeah.
They're exhausted by the hate and the chaos and the vitriol. They want to see people, and quite frankly, when good people get in there and then you end gerrymandering, you get good people on both sides of the aisle where that good tension.
Voters choosing their
right, and
their
voters
officials.
actually choosing those folks. So, I'm running because I can't look the other way while my state goes backwards. It's an honor and a privilege. When you love Ohioans, you don't move your business to Texas. You don't call.
That's a pretty fair test.
When you love Ohioans, you don't call them lazy and mediocre. When you love Ohioans, you don't keep changing your views on everything and pit people against one another.
If you know and love Ohio, you know if the Ohio State football coach is going to meet you, it's not in a parking lot of Raising Cane's.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, that's me and Vivek Ramaswamy standing in a parking lot outside a famous chicken shack in Columbus, Ohio that you might have heard of.
So you're bringing up something from our state, a Raising Cane's restaurant where I think someone punked. I think they punked my opponent, saying that he would come and meet the entire football team and the football coach. And
At Raising Cane's.
yeah, and it was
It's good advertisement for Raising Cane's.
yeah, he was punked by that.
Tell our listeners just a little bit about you. What is your secret superpower? Something you're very good at, but nobody knows.
Oh my goodness.
I'll give you some examples.
Okay.
Amy Klobuchar, who's now running in Minnesota,
Yes.
can operate on very little sleep. That's
Yeah,
pretty
that's not mine.
impressive. Wes Moore talked about cooking, which is useful.
Yeah.
Mine, which I say just about every episode explaining this, is making the Thanksgiving turkey. It's one thing I can do better than just about anyone, but it's only good one day a year. I mean, why couldn't I have gotten speed reading or operating on
Right.
very little sleep?
Right. I would say that people probably don't know that I love being outdoors.
Mm-hmm.
So I've hiked and climbed quite a few things in my life. And I
Like
love
mountains?
gardening. Yeah, Mount Whitney.
Okay, you
I've
climb
done-
Mount Whitney.
Yeah.
That's the secret
Yeah,
superpower.
people wouldn't know that. And they wouldn't know as a doctor that I'm not always the healthiest. I'm not a wag the finger kind
Okay.
of prevent public health
You know what?
person. I
That's
like a little moderation.
That's a good thing because people have thought that Democrats have been wagging the finger at them for a long time.
One of the things my team jokes about is I live off of a lot of sour candy, so much so that Ohioans are sending me a lot of Sour Patch Kids and Sweet Tarts and Skittles because, as you know, when you're on the road and maybe having to speak, a whole meal
gotta
can't
keep
go.
going.
So we do eat a lot of candy.
So tell our listeners how to follow your campaign.
Oh, please come join us. We are at actonforgovernor.com. We're so excited. We're setting records. We've just set another one. We have the biggest record we've set is the number of individual donors. We've had more donors give in the first half of the last year than people give going 2 years statewide.
Which shows a huge amount of support.
It is really grassroots, everyday people. Come join us. We have toolkits. We have a lot of influencers, so we have ways you can go and make your own content and just be a part of this movement for change.
So the website is?
actonforgovernor.com.
Well, this has been a conversation with Amy Acton. She is the Democratic nominee for governor of Ohio. And in the most recent polls, she's up. So make sure you check out that website. Amy, thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Governor. Thank you.
So we're back with Amy Acton, candidate for governor of Ohio, and we never miss an opportunity to sell our swag. See, we wanted to make sure that this doctor who helped a state get through COVID, that is now traveling with as cold as it is, had a sweatshirt that could keep her warm. Amy, as a token of our appreciation and with us trying to get listeners to buy a little bit more from the store, please accept this sweatshirt from the Andy Beshear Podcast.
Thank you very much. I will definitely be wearing this. Yeah, because you're a pretty cool governor.
Thank you. Our next segment on the Andy Beshear Podcast is in my Kentucky accent. That's when I talk about what's on my heart and my mind this week. This week, I'm thinking about Black History Month. Black history is American history, and it's so important to recognize the African American leaders that have made such an important and positive impact on the United States of America. It's also important that we are honest about our history, that we recognize where America went wrong to make sure we do things right moving forward. Unfortunately, during this year's Black History Month, we have a president that acts like it doesn't exist. He's removed Juneteenth as a day people can get in free to our national parks and replaced it with his own birthday. He's trying to take different references to slavery or the mistreatment of African Americans in the United States out of the Smithsonian and act like it didn't happen. Folks, let me tell you where I stand. I believe diversity is a strength and never a weakness, that we are better off having more voices, more backgrounds, more experiences at the table. I believe one of the things that's made America great is every generation is replenished by people with diverse backgrounds that help us be the best country that we can be. And when we celebrate the things we have in common and our differences, when we make sure that we recognize that every single person has value, and when we are honest about some of the mistakes in our past, we are a better country for it. So while Donald Trump may not believe in diversity, I most certainly do. And here in Kentucky, we're going to celebrate Black History Month just like we should. Our next segment on the Andy Beshear Podcast is my conversation with the Johns. We've always thought about this podcast as a conversation among friends, the way that we process the difficult news of the day. So this is when I talk to John Rabinowitz, an attorney, and John McConnell about those issues of the week and of the month. Some of us are Democrats, others Republicans, but that doesn't mean that we don't agree on most of what we talk about, and we can certainly always do it in a civil way. Last week we had a lot of heavy topics, and I think one, at least, we need to continue the conversation, and that's what's going on in Minneapolis. We had a large ICE and then Homeland Security through Border Patrol surge in Minneapolis. We have seen overly aggressive tactics. 2 Americans are dead, and people have taken to the streets in what seem like almost record numbers, standing up for what they believe are American values, where their rights are respected. I'm going to start with a pretty big statement. I think this might be the Bloody Sunday of our generation. I got to go to Selma last year on the 60th anniversary. I got to talk to the foot soldiers that marched across that bridge towards hatred. And even in a country at that time that was divided, the images that came out of Bloody Sunday changed so many minds and so many hearts. And I think, or maybe I hope, that that's what we're seeing right now.
Well, and it's sad that we're still having to talk about this, that even after those events, this is still dominating the news and what's coming out of Minnesota. And now, of course, you guys will have to explain to me, a district judge has now said that this is not retaliatory, but even though admitting that there is racial profiling going on. So, Andy, I mean, when you look at this in the state.
So that is a ruling where Minnesota's AG, Keith Ellison, tried to stop all of the ICE and Border Patrol activity, tried to stop almost all federal law enforcement activity in Minnesota, and thus far they've been ruled against.
And I think the precedent was not in his favor either.
But you can counter that with there are a number of rulings in Minnesota right now finding certain members of ICE or Border Patrol in contempt. There's certain rulings about what can and can't be conducted from it. And I guess the most recent news is Donald Trump said that they would not engage protesters, which I hope is accurate, because we have seen not only do they not have the training, but they go about it in an aggressive way that's not safe.
You know, Andy and John, I want to go back to your original statement. Do you think, obviously it's horrific with the deaths and what has transpired to date, do you think you feel that way because we have the videos that are actually that reveal that what we are being told is something by the federal government is something totally different than what happened in reality?
I wish it didn't take video, but at least when you look back on Bloody Sunday, that video just really touched a nerve, or maybe touched the heart of America, where, you know, even at divided or divisive times, we don't want people beaten or hurt or mistreated. And that video is just so rough and so awful. And it's not the only one. I mean, obviously there are, the two high-profile individuals that have been killed, but there's been plenty of others that have had really aggressive tactics used on them, have been thrown in the back of a Humvee, taken to a different state, and then the authorities say, oh, you're here legally. They're released in the other state, and they say, good luck getting back home. How is that the United States of America?
Well, and then the video, too, of a 5-year-old being walked away from a car. You know, every parent has the nightmare.
We
of
have
something
got
for
to have
kids.
better things to do than detain 5-year-olds.
Well, and,
We have bigger fish to fry.
and now arresting journalists. Mm-hmm. So there was a protest that came into a church, and you can question that tactic or not, but the idea that you would arrest a whole lot of people because of it is pretty concerning.
Well, I hope the new leadership that's in place there in Minnesota helps temper down what's going on. I don't know what will transpire this week. Every day things seem to change. I think I heard today that Trump said that he's not going to fund sanctuary cities, and Minnesota and Minneapolis being one of those. So we kind of go, it's like a roller coaster in that area.
It's wild, though, that Tom Homan is now supposed to be the moderate one in this administration on their immigration policy. It just shows how far out there it's gotten. And if you look back in time, there are administrations, take President Obama's, that deported record numbers of people, and he caught some flack from the left on that, but did it without all of this.
And I think there was cooperation at that time with ICE and the local police. Here, I don't think there's any interest in, at least in my opinion, it doesn't seem to be a lot of interest in the mayor using his local police to help police immigration.
I haven't talked to the mayor. I know the governor. I believe that they would help ICE on any violent criminal, because no one wants a violent criminal on the streets. But this idea that you pull up to Home Depot unannounced and jump out with assault rifles like ICE is doing in some places, that leads people to run. And that leads to dangerous situations in the surrounding communities when it happens. You're supposed to plan these operations. You're supposed to focus them on where they are and who you're pursuing. You're supposed to do the homework on who is an American citizen, who's here legally, and who's not before you show up and demand the papers.
And guys, don't think it's not relatable to here. My brother-in-law was in town. He was taking an Uber over to our house. He got out. He said, the Uber driver just told me a crazy story. She told him that she had picked up some clients and was driving them into Lexington. They got pulled over, and 2 of the passengers got detained by ICE.
Wow. So, Andy, do you feel that Minnesota, the standoff that's starting to happen, is going to be something that could be repeated around the country?
Yes, and will be. Okay. Minnesota is known for its activism, Minneapolis especially, but cities don't watch what happened in Minnesota and not react. I mean, these if it happens in a city in Kentucky, right? These are our people. Right. These are our neighbors. Democrat, Republican, doesn't matter. You're not supposed to treat people this way, and we cannot accept an American body count just for the deportation of a certain number of people. That is not right. The acceptable number is 0, and this administration is already way above that.
And something tells me we'll be talking about this for weeks to come, but another major news event, John and Andy, that happened last Friday is the Department of Justice released over 3 million documents, papers, videos, pictures from the Epstein file. And so I'd like your thoughts. To me, again, just shows how horrific this was. It also shows what the survivors went through. Mm-hmm. And then, in addition, I cannot believe the number of powerful individuals in all kinds of work that were, like, in some way had either communicated with him or had some sort of relationship with him. It's actually pretty shocking.
I was mentioned 0 times, but
thank God.
Thank God. But President Trump was mentioned close to 1,000 times.
And Elon Musk had emails going back and forth about when he might arrive at the island, but powerful people of all parties in it, and certainly anybody who engaged in that activity, that is unforgivable. Human trafficking is horrendous. These are oftentimes young women, sometimes young men who are coerced in different ways and forced ultimately into a life where they are raped multiple times a day, sometimes every day, for long periods of time. The release of the documents needed to happen, but how it happened concerned me. Yeah. There weren't appropriate redactions. The number one thing here is you do not re-traumatize these victims with everything they've been through. They should be first. You know, we should think about them even before we're talking about Jeffrey Epstein or the president and their involvement. The number one thing has to be those girls who were abused, and that we do it in a way that hopefully helps heal and not re-traumatize them. And then apparently they released some graphic pictures.
That's what I was going to mention. Wouldn't that be your number one thing you redact? You look for pictures of potential victims, and you cover those up to make sure those aren't released. It's pretty shocking. What are your thoughts on the Department of Justice basically saying we're done with the review of these files? With how big this has become, they can't do that. This is going back on a promise the president made. Remember, President Trump grabbed onto this, and at a time when some people thought what was in the documents might be a conspiracy theory. But he grabbed onto it. He promised to release them all. Then he becomes president and starts calling it a hoax created by Democrats. So at this point, it is so big that the Justice Department has to do more. And if he can order the Justice Department to try to make things up about his political enemies, the very least he can do is ask them to seek justice for these victims of human trafficking. Do you guys think there will be accountability for some of these names mentioned, that people will be held responsible for some of their actions? These are some powerful individuals named. Well, what we don't know is what investigation has been done based on the mentions in the documents. You know, anybody can mention someone, but if there is an email suggesting someone is going to that island, that should be investigated. Those are the types of pieces in there that should be.
Yeah. Did they go? Did they actually follow through? And then you look at the pictures that came out in Melania's new movie that just came out.
The director.
The director is in a photo with Epstein with 2 young women sitting in a bed with his arms around him. I think definitely more to come on this.
And how, as an older man or even a middle-aged man, do you not walk into that situation and say, this is wrong, I'm leaving, and everybody else should too?
Yeah, it's horrific.
So a special election just wrapped up in Texas, and my goodness, this ought to be a huge red flag.
You got a huge smile on your face.
I do. Alarms ought to be going off for national Republicans. This is a state house special election in Fort Worth. This was a district that Trump carried by 17 points, and the Democrat Taylor Remitt won solidly, running away with it. While it wasn't a big turnout, a Trump plus 17 district where you pretty much destroy the other side in Texas.
Yep.
That says something.
Elections are just bigger in Texas. And
Well,
an
it
example.
does seem that in these special elections, the Democrats are outperforming the Republicans in a lot of these different states. I do think the Democrats are very smart in the candidates they're picking. I love the military background, love the working background.
Electability.
Yeah, 110%. And they're focused on, by the way, a lot of these, what we have said on this podcast a ton, it's really not red or blue or right or left. It's how are we going to help the everyday person every day? Affordability.
Right. And people are calling that affordability.
Right.
I think how you started describing it is how people really think of it. But if we put it under affordability, I think Democrats win if they focus on two things: electability.
Sure.
Get the candidate that more people can vote for. And by the way, you govern better when that's the case. And second, affordability. In this instance, I think we're seeing a continuation and even a growth of what we saw in November of last year. I look at Abigail Spanberger and Mikey Sherrill's gubernatorial win since I was involved in those. I saw the numbers as it went. They were great candidates. They were going to win, even though structurally those races should not have been favorable to them. New Jersey hadn't had 3 straight terms of a Democratic governor in 70 years. Virginia had a popular Republican incumbent that couldn't run for re-election. Yet you saw, I think, a 12 and a 15-point win. Part of that's great candidates, very electable, on message. They'll be great governors, but there is definitely a repudiation of Trump in there.
And you'll see more distance, I think, too, because you got to outspent 10 to 1. And Trump even didn't acknowledge he was supportive, be it on Truth Social. He came out.
Trump
and did it.
endorsed.
Yeah.
The only thing I would say is it was a special election. It was on a Saturday. Low voter turnout.
But it was in Texas.
It was in Texas in a Republican-controlled area. But, guys, let's not count our chickens before they hatch, all right? Let's see what happens.
The Democrat representative from Fort Worth, Texas. That's pretty.
Please smile on your faces, guys.
Well, I think what it says is the country believes things have gone too far. And I think we all have said before, people don't like extremism.
Yeah.
Right? That's not where we want to be as a country. And whether it's the tariff policy, the immigration policy, the big health care cuts that are coming, I think that the American people are going to say, we didn't vote for this. All right? We voted for a president we thought would make life a little bit easier, would lower costs. But we didn't vote for this.
And it surely listen, the pendulum always swings. It surely looks like there's probably going to be a Democratic-controlled House come November. But that's not atypical in these presidential elections, the year after the party switching. But it needs to happen.
All right, Super Bowl.
Super Bowl time.
Is this Sunday. Who will be the winner?
Patriots.
My heart tells me Patriots, but I'm going to bet on the Seahawks.
I'm going with Bad Bunny for the win. He's going to have a halftime show that Trump won't stop talking about. It's going to blow up his popularity. He is going to be like the rapper of the resistance. I'm going to say he's going to sell more albums in this next year because of this.
Wait, are you a Bad Bunny fan?
I'm not sure.
Hold on a second.
I'm not sure.
This is a
I could
new
name you
revelation.
4 songs, but I'm telling you, he is getting set up for huge popularity. And I love that the president at different times has tried to say he might not be legal. He's from Puerto Rico.
That's actually funny. But in thinking about this, I was thinking to myself, after I asked my daughters really who Bad Bunny was, and I probably should have already known that.
Did they play some songs for you?
They did. I had not heard them. I probably should have.
But did you get into it?
Listen, they sounded fine. Not really like country music, but that's all right. Now, I will say, I was thinking about what the best halftime show was that I remember, going back to that, and why I loved the Dr. Dre when the Bengals were in.
That was great.
That was amazing.
Yes.
Prince was pretty good.
Snoop and Eminem joined in that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. You even had, I think Warren G was out there with them.
Yeah.
And the way the set was unreal. That's what I remember. It's just what a show.
I remember Prince.
Yes.
Put on a pretty good show too. The Rolling Stones I was so excited for, but the sound just wasn't there on that one. But they certainly performed. So you have it here. One Seahawks, 1 Patriots, and 1 Bad Bunny for the win. Hey, podcast family. It's Andy, and the Johns. The Johns are sitting here in their brand new Andy Beshear Podcast merch. What do you think of it, fellas?
It's great. I always love a good hat.
Yeah, listen, I love it. And I hear there's a rumor that there's going to be some swag that says Andy Beshear Podcast and the Johns.
Yeah.
Finally, John, so respect.
I think finally we're going to get some merch to drop that's actually going to feature us.
We'd love to see you in the Andy Beshear Podcast merch. Make sure you take those photos, post it to social media, and tag us at Andy Beshear Podcast. We will feature one great photo on our YouTube channel every week. So join us at the Andy Beshear Podcast. You can download us on all major platforms or catch us on Sirius XM Progress at 11 a.m. on Saturday mornings. That's a wrap on another episode of the Andy Beshear Podcast. It was great having Dr. Amy Acton in studio. She is running a great race in Ohio. And remember, the best way you can tell someone you care about them is by merchandise from the Andy Beshear Podcast. We've got hats, we've got t-shirts, we've got sweatshirts, we even have tote bags. So make sure you go on the website, andybeshearpodcast.com, click on the merch, and make sure that that person you care about knows about it by getting some merch from the Andy Beshear Podcast store. We'll see you next time.